Alright, good afternoon. Welcome to day 5 of Button a Day. We're going to look at some surface work today. I'm going to try and make the roof of our car a little bit better. So let's get started. For those people who don't know me, my name is Dan Rutter. I've worked in the film industry for the last 3 years, CAD modelling, taking concept art and then making them 3D and breaking them down to be machined, CNC, lasered, things like that. We're going to work with Hunt Doherty's concept here of his hover hot rod. Check him out on ArtStation. There's loads of really nice concepts and inspiration if you just want to doodle some stuff. Really good things. So although this looks like a complicated build, we are gradually breaking it down bit by bit, so don't panic. So one of the things I chatted about briefly on yesterday's video was concept art and having it always readily available so you can refer to it, otherwise known as reference. I'm lucky enough that I've got multiple monitors on the go, so I can always have this open on another monitor while I'm working. If you're not in that situation and screen space is a bit tight, there's this great bit of software I came across a few years ago called Quidro, made by Cruel Games. It's free to download, it's available for PC and Mac, and I'll just give you a little rundown of what it does. So this is my concept art here. I'm just going to minimize that for now. So when you download it, it downloads as a little exe file. When you run that exe file, it's not installing software, it's just running itself. So if you do download it, don't keep it in your downloads folder and then delete it in 2 months' time when you're having a clear out of your PC. You want to download it and put it somewhere that you can keep it. So if we double click it, comes up, says it's all ready to get going, and it appears in your sort of little taskbar at the bottom. So we can then left click it and we can choose add a local image. You can, so it's already opened up to here. I'll open that up and then it appears here. Now what's really nice is it has no borders, no frames to it. We can make the window bigger, we can zoom in and out, we can just crop it to show just the piece that we're interested in working on. It does every now and then just keep popping up saying, do you want to open a new image? And we don't. So let's do a bit of that and a bit of that. So other useful things with this is we can right click on the image itself and we can choose always on top. So now even if we open up another bit of software and we can click and rotate, this reference image is always going to stay visible. Other things, again, if your screen space is of a high sort of commodity, we can make that quite small. And if we right click again, don't know why it keeps popping up today, didn't do this yesterday, we can lower the opacity of it. We do that a few times and we end up with a sort of a ghost image, so we can still see our working area behind it, but at the same time that is now visible. Let's pop that down here. Okay, once that's quite finished messing around, we're going to look at this roof section, which we kind of blocked out yesterday. We've got a rough kind of idea of what's going on, but we're going to try and model something a little bit nicer today. Again, we're just going to work on half a roof and then mirror it across. So we're going to go to our feature tree down the bottom, we're going to navigate to the very end of it, and we're just going to wind back on our mirror feature. So At the top of your ribbon here, we've been working in the design tab, which is kind of where you do all your designing, obviously. You can also do rendering, animation, simulation, generate things for manufacture, and drawings. The only things I tend to really use are the design and drawing side of things. Once we've finished our model, we'll go into turning it into an annotated drawing. So we're sticking the design tab, but across the top here we've been working with solids. We're now going to work with surfaces. So we click on surface and you'll see that the icons in our ribbon kind of change. Everything goes to this sort of orange colour representing a surface, not a solid. Now the difference between a surface and a solid is a solid has 3 dimensions to it. A surface is thinner than a piece of paper. It is a single plane face, so it doesn't have any depth to it whatsoever. We can, once we've modelled our surface, thicken it and give it a depth, which is always a good thing to do, but you get a bit more control with surfaces in terms of getting things to blend nicely together. Okay, so under our Create tab we've got various ways of making surfaces. We're going to use lofting. So lofting lets you take various profiles, ribs if you will, and we can blend from one rib to another, and then on top of that we can add a backbone to those ribs, so we have more control over the shape that is created as it sort of blends between each of those ribs. So let's draw up some construction planes so we can make some ribs and we'll get going. So do a quick offset plane. I'm just going to do it off of the vertical plane just here. Pop one about there, and we'll do another one offset for the tail end of that. Bring that across to there. Okay. Other things I'm going to do here is just isolate these sections here. Which I probably have to do up in here. I can just, as I go through my bodies list, as I hover the mouse over them, the body in the model sort of highlights to let me know which one I've got selected. So I must have gone past that wing section. There we go. So once I've right clicked on the body in the body list, down the bottom you've got isolate. So we can just look at these, which is just going to make life a little bit easier. Okay, so we're going to create a sketch. I'm going to do this first sketch, say on this front surface. We kind of know we've got something almost correct to what we want. I'm going to come right the way down to this wing here. I'm just going to do that. So that's probably not the easiest to see, but I've literally just drawn 2 lines at the moment. Finish sketch. Just going to turn on those last planes I made. There we go. Planes that you create appear under your construction folder, and if you need them, your standard planes that pop up are under your origin folder. So you can switch that so it's always on. Usually it will come on by default when you start a new sketch. Okay, so we're going to create another sketch. Click on this middle one. It's usually a good idea to try and put the same number of points into your sketches, so when you morph from one to another it has a very simple job. not really the right wording, as a much easier job of saying, okay, this point of this line would look best lined up with this point. If you go from a sketch with very few to a sketch with very many points, it's trying to create weird faces that blend those together. So even if you end up adding additional points into a straight line, so you make instead of just doing one straight line, you maybe do 3, so you end up with some points in between. That's a good way of getting around things. Okay, so now I can look around sideways and see that that line I've made there doesn't really touch the top of my roof, so I'm just going to shift that up, and therefore we'll move this up a little bit as well, something like that. And then finally we'll go finish that sketch, and we'll start another sketch on here. Now I'm going to rotate this round to look at the back, and here I'm going to ignore that back fin at the moment, so I'm just going to grab that information there. Okay, finish sketch. So now we've got our 3 sketches here. We can have a look and see what this loft is going to do. So it's asking us for our profiles. So I can select 1 profile, 2 profiles, 3 profiles. Interestingly, it's only reading those straight edges at the moment, so we've just got a perfect little plane through here. In fact, if I press OK, we hide that body, you can see that's what it's created. Not really what we want. So let's turn our, this is where selection sets would be useful. I'm sure somebody smart can tell me how to do that. Let's edit that feature. Start a new one. We'll go to loft again. Under our profiles, find our sketches, which is, and select from down here. Can't select from down there, that's terrible. Right. Let's cancel that. Let's wind back. Now that green bar I just closed at the top of the screen lets me know that I'm running the most up-to-date version of Fusion, which is a good thing. Right, so we'll turn that one on. So again, I'm just selecting the sketches in my feature tree at the bottom here, finding them in my list. So that's that one, sketch 53, turn that one on, and select this one. Okay. We'll try this again. So, 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. 1, 2. That's more like what we want. Press OK. So what I had to do there was to select both parts of my sketch. Now I reckon if I had a little fillet, so instead of them being a sharp point there was a slight curve there, it probably would have selected a tangent line, but because there's a change in angle I have to select both parts of the sketch individually, which is annoying, but I kind of want that sharp crease in the roof because that's what we've got in our reference, so it's kind of the only way to do it. Okay, let's turn off our other bodies here. So what I might try and do, we'll select those, I'm going to put them into a group. So if you select the bodies that we want, so I can put these into a group, say this is the roof for example, and then we can very easily turn the roof on and off. So I'll move those to a group. Surface groups to move, yes. Okay, target group. Should be able to do that. Right click. Or create a selection set. There we go. So now in here I have this. So we can turn everything else back on if we want. And I can select those. Okay. So this is weird that this arch is coming up here and it's not quite, you know, the same width we want. We want this kind of thing in. So we can either put in another rib, or what we can do is change it and have another guide rail. Now I might put in another rib because I might do another one here just for this wing. So again, I'm just gonna wind backwards from our lofting. Turn on our construction planes that we have. That one and that one. And I'm just going to turn on our front origin sketch, which is... okay. So I'm going to create another offset plane from here. Just going to make it about that wide. I'm going to add another one here, offset plane, just so we can get that back window detail. Okay. Now we can start a sketch. That is going to come here. Down to there. And this one, starting sketch, just using our line tool, something like that. What we're going to do is we're going to generate this surface, and we're going to come back and tweak these lines and see what sort of effect it has. We'll finish our sketch. Okay. So let's delete our mirror from the tail end of that. We'll go in and edit our feature. We'll clear all of these lines and we'll start again. So we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now you see, this is where I was saying about the number of points. Is if you just have this one line selected, it's trying to work out where to put this crease, and it's just kind of plonking it in the middle here. If you've drawn that line with a third point in it, you can then define where that crease goes. We want that, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then that. Okay. Got us a bit of a weird shaped roof on the go, but you know what, that's fine at the moment. So how do we get a little bit more control over this? Let's turn on our other sketches, to the ones we've just made. Which is sketch 56 and 55. There we go. Well, if I grab hold of this point of this sketch and we move it down, you see it's now rethinking and reblending those surfaces together. So this becomes quite a nice way of being able to sort of manipulate the shape. Try and match that sort of curve we've got going on. So it definitely doesn't do this sort of reverse sweep. It's definitely a very sort of gentle convex curve. So I think we'll just shift this line up a little bit. Oh. Too much fun. I'll move that up a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. It's looking cool. Now, this is all slightly odd. So we can drag this line, we can bring it in, and we can add some constraints to these, but I'm not too worried about it at the moment. I think we do need to sort out the wobble we've got on the go, so let's bring this line out, try and get that sharp, crisp. You know, I might move the other ones in instead. We might just have it start to sort of tail in at that end. And we'll bring this one in. Do you know what, actually it does kind of have a sort of a flare out. Maybe we'll leave that for now. Rotate round. Get an idea of what's going on. Okay, maybe we'll bring it a little bit. Something like that. Okay. This wing looks wider than I've drawn it here. So that was one of these planes that we created. So if I go in and edit that feature, with that at 400, I'm just going to up that maybe 6. That looks like a bit better. And now the other thing we're going to try and do is we're going to try and do a 3D sketch again, which I have fallen into difficulties in the past with, but we'll give it a go. And I'm going to try and define this line that makes up the edge around here. And I'm going to try and hit all of these points on our ribs that we've made, and then I'm going to specify that as a guide rail so that we have some real control over how this edge shape, this sort of edge of our surface is going to flow. So we're just going to wind backwards again for our loft. We're going to go to create sketch. I'm going to be looking for my 3D sketch tool, but I think I have to specify somewhere to sketch first. There we go. And then before I start sketching anything, I can click on 3D sketch. So we'll see if I'm right about this. We'll pull out our spline tool. I would like to go from this point here to this point here, up to here, to here, and then finally just zoom out to here. Double click when done, don't hit escape. Let's do that again. So from one point to another point. Okay. So you see there's a little tick box just here. We can confirm that. Now, splines are brilliant. And you can see I've still got the spline logo tool floating around by my arrow, so it thinks I want to start drawing another spline. I don't, so I can hit escape, and now I can actually just start selecting things. And if we rotate round, that has indeed worked as it should. We have a 3D sketch that's matching all of those points, and we have these green handles that we can now manipulate. By double clicking, then we can move them around so we can get real control over what our curves are doing. Okay. Something like that. Now if I grab this one and move it out, you see we get a really nice sort of sweepy curve, technical term. Okay. And the closer these green dots are to each other, then the tighter that corner becomes. Do something like that. Always good working 3D. You need to check all views, because that was looking pretty good from the side. And then when you look at the bottom or the top view, suddenly you're all over the place. So we'll just wind that in that way. We'll okay that. This one here, see, it's quite close together, so we've got a bit of a kink. If we stretch that out, we'll end up with a much smoother curve. Okay. Let's just shift this one back a little bit. Choose OK. Let's see what happens there. So we'll finish our sketch. We will wind forwards in our timeline. We've got a lofting tool. We'll right click and edit the feature, and now we've got here the option of rails, so we're going to click on add because we would like to add a rail. We'll select this shape. So now it tries to kind of follow this edge as close as it can, with all kinds of weirdness going on. Because this is kind of overriding what's going on. Okay. Well, I'm not happy with that. So let's try adding an additional rail. So maybe we can specify where this line should be going across here, because this is all being pushed and distorted in places that we don't like. So let's wind backwards again. We'll switch on our 3D sketch just so we've got it there for reference. We will create a new sketch. We will select a plane. We already have 3D sketch selected. We go back to our spline tools, and this time we'll pick up these corners along here. And then select our little OK button. Finish our sketch. Wind forwards. We'll edit our feature. We're going to say we would like to add another rail. There we go. Starting to look much better. Still some weirdness going on here. To be fair, I'm probably going to thicken this roof out, so we'll give it a thickness, and then we might just slice this away manually. So we can choose OK. Okay. So now we have a surface. Like I say, it's a single-sided thing, so it has no structure to it. You know, we couldn't 3D print this. It's pretty much just a coloured-in 2D drawing that's in a 3D space. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but imagine it just being made of really thin paper. So under our modify option here, we have a thicken. There it is. Sorry, it's actually under create. So we choose thicken. We can select the surfaces that we would like to thicken, and then very much like the sort of extrude option, we can just type something in. This can be a little bit intensive, a fair amount to think about. So it's saying I definitely can't make it 100mm thick, which is just as well because I don't really want it that thick. Go for 10mm. Now you can see it actually has a thickness to it, which is kind of interesting in a really nerdy way, that it will now appear in our bodies list as a body as opposed to as a surface. So this sort of opened roll of paper is a surface, and anything that is the sort of white solid cylinder is now a body. Okay. So now it does have a thickness and it is a body. We can go through back to our solids. We can add tiny details on here. We could add a little 3mm chamfer. Just again to that edge, just picks up the light. We get that sort of little reflection across there. And if we take on a side view, start a sketch. Selecting that face there. I want to turn off 3D sketches, and then I'm just going to draw something in here to sort of slice that shape, to take that back to there, back to there, down. Okay. So it becomes much easier to navigate these little green handles whenever we're in a 2D sketch, which is useful. So I'm just going to take this one at this end here, make that really tight. Do something like that for now. Finish our sketch. We can then do an extrude. I just want to cut through there. Okay. Turn off our sketches, we can turn off our construction planes, and we can turn on all of our bodies again. We'll see how we're looking. So we'll leave off our roof, leave off our wing, put everything else back on for now. Okay. So I think we're sort of getting somewhere with it. Maybe we want it a little bit thicker. Maybe 10mm wasn't quite enough, so we can go back again to our feature tree here, just right click, edit our feature. Maybe we'll try and make it 20mm thick. Okay. Okay. Let's try doing a slightly sort of cool shape to this rear wing. And what we'll do is we'll use the planes that we've already got here. We're just going to draw two profile shapes on either end of this block, and then we'll loft between them, and we'll see what we can come up with. Let's find that block in our bodies. It's this one here. Turn off everything else. In fact, we can right click and just choose isolate on it. There we go. Forgetting myself. Right, so we can start a new sketch. Start on here. I'm just going to draw a little shape up. Maybe give it sort of like an aeroplane wing design, so it sort of does that slightly round at the front. So under circle, we can actually choose to do a 3 tangent circle, which means we select 3 edges, and our circle is tangent to those 3 edges. It's always touching. Quite useful. And we'll do a line. We'll just take back to this midpoint, and then from that midpoint back to our circle. In fact, if we select our line, hold shift, select our circle, we can specify that we want that line to be tangent. So we zoom in now, we get this weird little sort of kink. If we make it tangent, it will join that circle at a point where it is a perfect transition. Do the same at the bottom here, like so. Now we can go back to our trim tool, which is those pair of scissors up in the modify panel. Just take that section out. Once we're happy with that, we finish our sketch. Go around, we can do a sketch on the other side here. Sketch. Do a circle. 3 tangent circle between this line, and this line. Have this starting on this edge to the midpoint, back again. Then we do the same thing and say that should be tangent to that. there. And this line should be tangent to that. And then we can trim. Finish our sketch. Okay, so we lofted to create a surface, but we can also loft with a solid. So if our sketch lines are closed, there's no issue between lofting between the two of them. So do that. We'll select sketch 1, turn my sketches back on. Okay. And sketch 2. Set it to be a new body. And okay. And if we unisolate and bring everything back on, then we can hide this shape. You see we've got this sort of nice wing shape here. Well, is there any benefit between lofting as opposed to doing a straight extrude and then cutting that angle off? Not necessarily, other than the fact that we can add a guide rail. So if I undo that again, show our sketches, scroll right the way down, that would be the last 2 sketches we did, these 2 here, and then we do create a sketch. I have to choose a plane. This is going to be another 3D sketch, so I'm not too worried about what plane I pick. We'll do for that one. Turn on 3D sketch. And now I can specify I would like to do a curve. So we do a little arc, 3-point arc. I say is end to end, and then you pick another point on that curved surface. Let's rotate around so we get a good view of where we're selecting. Somewhere there. That end. We'll pop this anywhere for the minute because we can then move where it is. So I can see I missed this point. Should be connected to that point. So select one, hold shift, select the other, and we can tell them they are supposed to be coincident. It already has a relationship attached to it. So we kind of want to select that and delete it. Now we should be able to move it around. There we go. Let's go for that, see what happens. We can specify a dimension on this, so we've got quite a big radius on it. If we flatten that out, maybe take it down to 700, or even flatten it out by making it bigger, 500. Finish sketch. So now if we fast forward again, so we've got our solid loft, edit the feature, and add a guide rail. And okay. So you've got this sort of nice sort of curved shape to it. It's not what we want, it's not in the reference, but I just thought I'd show you useful ways of using lofting tools. What we can do to create a nice sort of blend between these two is, now they're both solids, we can combine them. So we'll select our roof, we'll select the wing, just to join them together. Now we have this sort of defined line round here. There's no issue in going in with the fillet tool and adding a fillet will make that much bigger. 30, 20, 20, there we go. Just gives us a little blend into here. Now, if I delete that, there should be different ways of blending lines. Now you see this has gone really wobbly along here. This is probably just to do with the way that Fusion is rendering that. So if I zoom out, it does neaten itself up again. But we can also add a small fillet or a chamfer to that pointy edge. In production, you don't really want anything ever going down to a complete edge unless you're making a knife blade or something like that, because the material will get so thin at the end that if you are printing it, it will become brittle and fall apart. If you are machining it, same thing, it's just going to disappear and fade. So even if you add the smallest of little rads on there, say at this point if it was 1 mil, suddenly it crisps up in the drawing as well because it's got more geometry to deal with, and it will just save those things from just tapering away into nothingness. Okay, let's have a little look. What have we got down here? Let's go back to our fillets. Different types. So we can do a variable radius fillet. Let's give that a go. And let's turn off our tangent chain at the moment. So this should allow us to make this side of the fillet bigger than this side of the fillet. So we can do this one up to 20. We know 20 works. Take this one to 5. Okay, delete that one. Fillets can be a tad tricky at times. It's really annoying. And I personally would like to be able to select a new point. There we go. So if I selected a point here, and say a point here, sure I'm not the only person who at the moment, as everybody's working from home, is finding that their computer is not exactly the fastest on the internet that it has been. You get the idea. So a variable fillet will let you go from a larger fillet at one end to a smaller fillet at the other, but then you can also add additional control points in there to get a sort of a smoother look. Okay. Well, I might play around with this a little bit more, try and get some smoother shapes. I'm going to add just a little, actually we'll do it now, we'll add a little spike on that bottom part, because that looks kind of cool, that piece there. So let's create a sketch, do it on this front plane. I'm going to click on our view cube so we spin round to the front. Just going to draw in something like that, say 120. Yeah, looks good. And we will do finish sketch, extrude, select our shape, set that to be a join. Kind of works, press OK. We'll add, see that's not so good, so let's go back and edit that feature. And as our starting point, we will go from object, select that edge, bring it across, something like that. So it's still not quite starting where I'd like it to, so I can offset that to -5. or indeed 5, just to bring it forwards. Okay. Just add a little fillet in here. Constant. To top and bottom. Okay. Another one at the back. This one I'm going to do as a annoying. So I know I keep going on about it, but SolidWorks, you pay for it, but it's a great bit of software. So if I do fillets in SolidWorks, I can do the same thing we can in chamfers, where I can do it based on 2 dimensions, and it will generate just a soft curve by a height and a width, which would have given us a nice sort of button cap end to this, instead of having to go in and model something, but it's fine. Now we're just going to add this sort of spike detail. So create a sketch, choose this face. If you hover over a circle, you can do what they call like waking up the center point. Let's make that sort of quite big. That is not where it should be. Hit dimension, we'll bring that out, we'll make it say 95. We'll see if that'll want to move. If it doesn't, I'd like to select that and choose concentric. Just delete that sketch. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so I snap to this point, which is part of my other sketch that's visible, as opposed to the center of the circle. So this is where I hover over the edge. It just gives you this little plus sign in the middle. There we go. Actually, make that 100. Let's make it chunky, chunky, chunky. Okay, I'll do a quick extrude. Finish our sketch. Extrude. Select our shape. Bring it out. Maybe to about there. Set it to be a new body, so we're going to make it a different colour. Okay. And now we're going to add the point. New sketch. I've already got that information there. So if I project, got that. I can select that, and we're just going to choose to taper. We'll do -20. Too much. Try again. Edit feature. -5. -10. -15. Okay. And then we can add a fillet around the edge, just to smooth it off. Again, see what I was saying about things going down to absolute finite points being a bad idea? That taper's probably not such the best idea. So let's edit feature again. And let's just change that till we get a very slight dull point on the end. Maybe 13. Something like that. And then OK. And then we can always just add a tiny fillet onto there. Like that. Okay. Let's hide our sketches folder. Just here somewhere. Okay. And let's do our usual thing of just mirroring everything and seeing how we feel things are looking. We can add a colour to this. So under appearances, we've already got our blue. We can drop that on. There we go. And we've already got a steel that we can add onto this piece as well. So let's go to create and mirror. Select all these bodies. Our mirror plane is one of our construction planes down here, so we turn those on, and now we can see it's this one here that we just offset in, or else the entire car was looking a little bit wide. Okay. So now it's mirrored. I can see actually I'm not too happy with this curve. Maybe it flares out a little bit wide here. So I can go back and I can play again with those control points. But generally I think we're getting there. Slowly but surely. Doesn't look like any of us are going anywhere for a while. So with that, like I say, head over to Quadro. Download this, it's great. Other little things with this, if you've got out multiple images, so if I click on here and I add another local image, not that I've really got any, let's go for this one. Actually, let's go for view stuff. We bring this out, so we've got another image. Could be a different view, could be another piece of reference, maybe a nice engine, something like that. You can bring all these up, you can lay them out. And then if you right click and choose save as, you can give that a name. We call it button a day reference. And then when you close, so right click again and quit, that disappears. You think, right, let's start that project again. Double click to start. Gives you a little notification saying it's there. You can then right click, choose open, click that reference file, and it brings up all your images exactly how you've laid them out with your opacities, all your settings, everything. And the nice thing about that is you can store your images and the program on a USB stick. So if you're in a situation where you're maybe at uni and you're in a computer lab, if they still have such things, and you don't know which computer you're going to be going to, you can have your project with you on a USB stick, plug it in, load up all your reference, and you're good to go. So until next time, stay home, save lives, look after each other, and see you tomorrow. Any questions, comments, let me know. Cheers.